All right, how's everyone doing? Glad everybody could tune in tonight for another Tuesday night live stream. These Tuesdays, like I say every single week, they always come so darn fast. It's unbelievable. So tonight will be, I think, a lot of fun. I had to do some hunting for these guys. I'll tell you, they if someone's not on vacation or somewhere else testing samples or doing something or other, so they got their hands in a lot of whiskey, that's for sure. So, but tonight will be a lot of fun. We're gonna do kind of a little bit of a past, present, and future type of deal with Foregate. We'll kind of just go through a little bit for anybody who doesn't know, Bob and Bill from Foregate. They can tell you a little bit about their background, how they kind of started the company, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit of the whiskey, things along those lines, and just kind of have a fun night. So the main thing is that you guys, get to know a little bit more about them and obviously the brand. So I know with Foregate and what they've been doing, the last, at least year and a half. Beyond that, of course, but in terms of how they've really exploded over that period of time, I think it's a good time to get them on. They just released their batch 14 old sherry pike, so we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. And then, as you can see at the bottom tonight, there'll be a little giveaway. So I don't think there's many people who've gotten batch 14 yet, but somebody will get it tonight. So it's a nice 200 ml, a Foregate glass, and the Foregate coin. So we'll bring these guys on here in a second. Before I do, let me say a quick hi to everybody who is in the chat. Roy R. Does Thing was number one in the thing. Johnny Boy, hey John, how's it going? Cameron, how are you? The Turk Meister, how's it going, Ethan? Katie, the boss, how are you doing, Katie? Let's see. Kunkel, how's it going? Good to see you, bud. What else we got? Cam's there. Who else we got? John, how's it going, John? I already said hi to Trevor. Kenny Killingsworth, how's it going, Kenny? Sugar Kitty, how are you? Wes, how's it going, Wes? Good to see you in there. Cheech, how's it going, my man? What else we got? I think that might be it for right now, and I'm sure people will start popping in as the feed gets out. So, all right, without JG, how's it going? Without further ado, let me bring on Bill and Bob here, and we'll get going at this, and we'll find out a little bit more about them and the and Foregate Whiskey Company. So let's get them on here. I'll bring them on. Here we go, gentlemen.
What's going on, sir? How you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Well, you gotta be doing pretty damn good. I mean, you own Foregate Whiskey Company, so there shouldn't be too much complaining on from either one of you. So
I like that you're wearing our shirt today. I'm wearing your shirt.
You know what? Here's a good question for you guys. Oh yeah, I just saw you. It kind of popped up above the screen. All right, we're trading shirts here. Trading shirts. All right, so here's my question to you. More so me to you guys, but is me wearing the shirt Foregate like the guy who wears the band shirt to the band he's going to see? I was thinking about that.
Shirts all the time. I'm the wrong guy to ask about that.
I've got you guys on the channel. We're talking about Foregate. I've got a Foregate T-shirt on. I almost feel like I'm the guy who bought the concert T-shirt at the concert that I'm going to. Am I that guy or no?
Nah, it's fine. Okay, everything I own, I think anymore has some sort of whiskey name or brand or something on it, so I never know what I'm wearing.
Okay, good. I feel bad, Bobby.
It's like wearing a Nike shirt. It's perfect.
All right. Well, that's good. I mean, I like how you compare yourself to Nike. That's good. Go big or go home.
Pretty much the same thing.
All right.
I got to get you a Foregate hat.
Yeah, Foregate. Well, yeah. I mean, right now I'm just like slumming, and I've just got my own Mash and Journey hat on. So this is the only swag I've got for right now. So
I'll send you a hat. I just got a couple new ones in.
Can never go wrong with a good hat. Nate, thanks. I appreciate it. Never had Foregate. Well, you are in. Hopefully you will. You'll be in the contest tonight. I'll tell you, the Foregate is it's a pretty darn good. It's a pretty specifically the batch 14, which we'll get into, is a fantastic Oloroso sherry finished bourbon. Some good ages, 12 and 6-year-old stuff. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But before we do, Why don't we, if there's anybody who doesn't know either one of you, you mind sharing a little bit about who you are and kind of how you started the company? Why don't we start there?
All right, I guess I'll start. I'm Bill Straub, and I've been writing for Modern Thirst. I own that website. You can see me in the chats in here at modernthirst.com still. It's kind of a holdover from the old days. But on modernthirst.com, got into whiskey that way. I was doing some consulting through that, and kind of running out of steam on the website after 5 or 6 years. It's hard to do when it's writing, and I wasn't really getting into the YouTube side of it very well. But Bobby I'd met Bobby through a mutual friend of ours. He introduced me to Kelvin Cooperage, and I kind of pinged around in my head for a while of all the fun you could have if you were kind of small scale and got to go into Kelvin's barrel warehouse and just have your run of the place and pick of the barrels. And they don't have thousands of barrels in there that are sherry finished or wine finished or whatever. They might only have 10 or 5 or 20 or 50 at most. So the big guys, they don't care about a 10 barrel batch. It doesn't move the needle for them. But if you're small enough and you do it on a really craft and small basis, you can have a lot of fun with it. So I called up Bobby and said, I think I'd really like to do this with Kelvin Cooperage. Do you think they'd be interested? He said, no, I'll ask. I said, also, I need a partner. Do you want to do it? And I think I had barely finished the sentence before he had quit his job, his previous job, and it said, I'm in. So that's where it went. We started 3 years ago. Bobby is probably the best person in the city of Louisville at making relationships and building those relationships, making contacts. And he has located barrels for us from literally all over the world. Just amazing. And we've just been so thrilled with how everything's turned out and the reception that we've had. And it's been a blast.
Man, it sounds like a pretty good business plan. You just ask a buddy, do you want to start a whiskey company? And then they say yes. And then that's just how you do it. That's pretty good.
Well, we did have to build a business plan. We went out and pitched it to some investors, and we had to get some money in first. But I kind of gave you the Reader's Digest version of that.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, that's good. And I mean, I've already known, but I think for other people, they're always interested to know, hey, how do you start a brand? I mean, obviously, from where you guys started 3 years ago to now, I mean, it's you want to say night and day. I mean, just in terms of where you were and where you are now, it's awesome to see the growth and all of that. But I think people are always interested, man, how in the world do people start whiskey brands? And I mean, obviously, you guys know it takes an awful lot of money and support and backers to be able to secure everything that you need to for what you put in these bottles. So it's interesting. All right, Bobby, you got 18 minutes to tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Can you do that?
That long. So, Bill asked me to do it. I took him into Kelvin and introduced him to the brothers, and they were wide open with him and talked to us for about 45 minutes. And then we showed him around the cooperage for about a half an hour or so. And then we walked back into Kevin's office. He goes, you can write whatever you want, Bill, but I'll tell you one thing. Forget every single number I told you that has to do with Kelvin Cooperage or our process here. You can write whatever you want verbally, no numbers. You got it? He goes, I got it, Kevin. And so then he left, and then literally it was like 15 months later, and I told Bill, I said, I'll do it with you. What do you think? I said, and he was kind of thinking small, and I was thinking, I didn't know if that was enough money, and I didn't know that much about it. But immediately we said, we got to make the phone calls to the 3 Fs, and that's family, friends, and fools. And Sue was going to give us a bunch of money to capitalize.
We got a little bit of each too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard. I talked to one of my buddies in Michigan. He dove in right away before we even had a business plan. And he goes, I want to be the first investor. I don't care what the number is. I'll talk to my wife. We're going to be in. We want to do it. And then it kind of rode from there. Then we got a couple more. Then we sold the last couple of units. And then one other guy found out about it. And he's like, hey, man, will you let me in? I know you guys are looking for some more money to buy this first round of juice. So I met this other investor. I talked to him for like 3 to 5 minutes. We met at a coffee shop, and he goes, I'm in. He never looked at any of the financials. He knew the other people that were buying in. and he trusted their judgment. And Bill and I raised the capital, and we made the first calls for money. I found this 11-and-a-half-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, and then we called all the investors and said, "Hey guys, we need the wires to come in now. It's a real company. We found the first juice. We're still working on the labels, but we got to secure the juice." And so they wired us the money, and I literally, I think Bill and I were talking about it. I want to say it was June 18th was the day we got our LLC. That we decided on the name. We threw a bunch of names in the hat after Bill asked me to do it, and I was making some phone calls after we talked to some people at one of our bottlers, and it Kelvin Cooperage and Kevin McLaughlin gave me one name to call, and I'm like, "Bill, we got to name the company." I'm making these phone calls, and we don't even have the name of the company. And he goes, and he got back to me like 2 weeks later. He goes, "I kind of like the four-gate fence name. What does that mean?" I'm like, "Well, it's a slang name for, the horse farm fences that have 4 rails or 4 boards in Kentucky. It's one of the most iconic images in the state. Everybody calls it a four-gate fence." And he goes, "I want to use Four-Gate Whiskey Company. What do you think?" I'm like, I'm good. Let's start designing the label. Filed an LLC, and then Bill got the federal permit for us a couple of weeks after that. We set up the LLC, and then we started calling around. And then Bill and I were really selfish on designing it. He rejected like 3 or 4 different fonts. The first font that came through was the one we ended up using. We got a couple others, and Bill's like, "I don't like any of these. We're not doing something that looks like Led Zeppelin or some other crazy thing."
There's one that looks straight up like AC/DC. I was like, no chance. No chance.
And then I asked the labeling company that we decided to use to put like a spring house in there, and they sent me a picture of like an English barn in Wales, and I'm like, "This is not what we're looking for." So I told Bill, I said, "I'm going to go take some pictures myself of one of my favorite spring houses in Kentucky that's a couple of 100 years old." And then we started working off of that, and we kept doctoring it up. And then Bill and I agreed on that. And then we started working on the label, more of the detail, the tax stamp. And we were selfish. We didn't want to spend, 50 or 100 grand for somebody to pick the label and tell us how we were going to name our brand or the bottle. Bill and I both agreed almost immediately on the bottle that we looked at from one of the glass companies out of New York City that has a satellite office in Frankfurt. We agreed on that almost immediately, and that we wanted a real cork with real mahogany wood. So we bring the glass in from Poland. The corks come in from Portugal.
Wow. Really spending the old money on the corks.
Well, I mean, they, we didn't want to do synthetic to save, 18 or 20 cents a cork. It's not a big deal. I mean, we got the best corks literally on the planet. And I think they're like, I'd have to look at an invoice to check, but I want to say they're 43 cents. And you get 2 bags of 1,100 in cryovac bags, and you get 2 bags in a box, so you get 2,200 corks in a box. So that's how we do them. We buy the pallets the way they come, 3 layers of 28, 84 cases per pallet. We bring them in on the ocean containers, and then bring them into Frankfurt, or some of them come into Columbus, Ohio, through New York City, our supplier, and then we bring them into our bottler.
Man, well, let's kind of back up a little bit. I mean, I know you started out obviously with Kelvin Collaboration 1. So what went into the first batch? What was the thought process behind it in terms of how you wanted to formulate? What was going to start the representation of Four-Gate? What went into that?
So that it was kind of a fun story with us. We actually we knew we kind of wanted to come out with a bang, and we wanted to be a little bit different. If I just want an 8-year-old whiskey, I can go out and buy an 8-year-old whiskey or 6-year-old whiskey. There's no reason for me to start a company and try to compete with people who are already doing it. We wanted to do something a little different. So that's where the barrel finishing came into it. And we wanted to start out a little differently. So we had all these barrels. I think we had 25 originally of these 11.5-year-old Kentucky straight bourbons. They were 74% corn, 18% rye, 8% malted barley. Heritage Kentucky Distillery.
And Bill, but you got to back up for a second and tell them when I text you that phone call.
So we were looking for all this whiskey. We didn't even have all the money yet. And Bobby calls me. I'm driving back through Shelbyville, Kentucky to my house in Louisville. And he said, I just found some 11-year-old Kentucky bourbon. I almost wrecked. I had to pull over on the side of the interstate to take his phone call on it. But we were thrilled. It's fantastic stuff. We'd had a couple of the big names had actually reviewed it for the guy who had it, and we knew that it was highly regarded before we got it. We brought in 25 of the first barrels we purchased, and we did 2 different blends, one that was sweet and one that was spicy. And then we brought in some friends to Kelvin Cooperage to taste the blends. And they were Brian Hara, Sippin' Corn, the author and online presence, Craig Ruprecht and Owen Powell from their Louisville Bourbon Hounds at the time. Was a big group in Louisville, huge group, and both are very active in the bourbon community around. If you live in Louisville, you know who they are if you're into bourbon. So we had them taste it, and we picked the blend that we liked along with William Hornaday from Kelvin Cooperage. And once we had picked the blend, he took us into the warehouse to show us these barrels they had, and they were these big old, I think they were 59-gallon barrels of. They were originally sherry barrels from Spain, and then they were used to do a batch of dark rum down in the Florida Keys, and they just smelled like maple syrup and peanut butter and jelly. They were just wonderful. And we just knew that spicy blend was going to work perfectly in them. I think there were 11, 12 of those barrels, Bobby?
Yeah, and William said he thought they were some of the best barrels they brought in.
They were gorgeous. They were in perfect condition. I think they'd only been used for one batch of rum. So we filled those, and that determined the batch size. And they just, we monitored it. We tasted it initially after about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe at the least. It might have gone close to a month. We were just itching at the seams, trying to, couldn't wait to go taste it. And it was so good. We let it go a little bit longer until everyone agreed that it was ready. We pulled it, started bottling it up, and we released it on April 19th of 2019.
And I think your theme so far for the Kelvin collaboration series is all going to be rum based and then a twist on that, correct?
Well, so far it has been, and it will be going forward for at least the next batch. But more importantly, it's been a fortified wine and rum. That might change. We like to use dual use because, again, we're trying to be a little bit different than everybody else. So we either like a dual use barrel or 2 different finished barrels, especially for that Kelvin collaboration. It's been just so well received on everything we've done. We love that formula, and it's kind of a nice kind of calling card for us to come out with a slightly different, yet kind of along the themes of the dual finish in there. The first one was really well received. Second one was Minnick's Barrel Finished Whiskey of the Year. The third one was his new Ascot Society of Tasters Barrel Finished Whiskey of the Year, and finished top 5 in Best in Show. So it's just been, we've been fortunate. Bobby's found some amazing barrels of whiskey. Kelvin has some amazing options for us to finish these things, and we've just been as diligent. If you knew how many miles Bobby drove back and forth to Bardstown picking up samples so that we could taste them every 7, 14, 20 days, whatever it is. We don't want it to go too long. We don't want to do it too short. So we just try to stay on top of them and taste them constantly. And when they're ready, they're ready. And we've even had some that we didn't, they were okay, but they weren't good enough. So we waited, and then we found another use for them by finishing them a second time. And they're just, they're going to be awesome. They're coming out soon. When we get into the future, we'll talk about that.
I'll get into. We're still a little. Right now we're still like a little bit of the past, and we're working our way into the present kind of now. But I guess was the idea really all along, in terms of once you guys first started things out, that the idea was going to be, our twist is going to be finishing. This is kind of what we wanted to do.
Yeah, it kind of started, the whole idea. I had, a guy who wrote for me for Modern Thirst, a good friend of mine, Wes Jolly, lives out in Colorado City. He came to write for Modern Thirst because we wanted some world whiskey experience, and we wanted some Scotch drinkers. So he introduced me to Scotch. I hated Scotch before he brought me good Scotch and sherry aged stuff like that. And I started thinking it's kind of amazing how you could take Scotch is 1 grain, it's malted barley. But because 85% or more of your flavor comes from the barrel, their flavor profile is gigantic because they can use any barrel in the world. And you think about bourbon, and as long as it's 51% corn, the rest of it can be anything you want. But our flavor profile is kind of like this because it's always a new barrel, new charred barrel. So, I really, again, we could have gone out and just bought whiskey and put it in a bottle, but there's no reason to do that. I'm a whiskey enthusiast. Bobby's a whiskey enthusiast. We've done that all of our adult lives anyway. There's no reason to start a company and compete with people who've been doing it for 50 years and have their own distilleries. We want to do something different. We want to be a little bit different, be a little unique. And part of that is working with the guys at Kelvin Cooperage, the ladies and the guys that work there. They've been doing this for, decades now. No one knows more about how that barrel impacts the spirit than the guys who have been doing this for 60 years and specifically crafting barrels towards the client needs. They know exactly if we have a certain humidity level, we're going to cut down on some loss. It's going to have this flavor profile difference from ones that have a slightly lower humidity, things like that that are so kind of, I want to say it's geeky with barrels, but it's not. It's really fascinating. It's really interesting. They know it better than I ever could. So we want to lean on them and use that expertise and bring it into the blending process too, to do something unique. And that's, hopefully we've done that.
Well, and that's one of the things that I try to tell people about, specifically. I mean, I use you guys as an example a lot. I mean, you're good for kind of, having as an example, but, in terms of maybe for some things. Okay. Some things. All right. We're talking whiskey here, but I think, again, going back to the barrels, not only with the cooperage that you guys have kind of, partnered with, but in terms of sourcing other barrels, in terms of all of those qualities that will hold all of that good whiskey, in terms of how important that really is to craft ultimately what it is that you want ending up in these bottles.
Well, the number one thing that Bill said at the very beginning when I said I would do it with him was, we're not going to cut any corners, and we're not going to buy bad juice and try to cover it up, cover the flaws of it. We want to buy the best juice. I mean, just for an example, our 7-year-old rye is outstanding. Our 9-year-old whiskey that we released twice is outstanding. We use that again a couple of times in other blends, both the rye and the whiskey. Both of them got higher ratings than the whiskeys on by themselves. I mean, we just blended the 9 and the 12-year-old with this Kelvin Collaboration 3 that came out for Derby this year. That won all the awards. When we released the 9-year-old by itself, I mean, it got great reviews. I think we got 93 points on it, Bill, didn't we, from Whiskey Advocate? I mean, it was outstanding. And we released 2 small batches of it, batch 3 and batch 5. They're all sold out. The secondary market's going crazy on it now. We're not really about that, but that's where people are finding it. But, when we blended the rest of that juice to make the Kelvin Collaboration 3, that's where it just took off again. And you're like, well, if it's that good, why don't you just release it by yourself? Because that's what Bill wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And he asked me to do that with him when we started the whiskey brand, was let's find the best juice that we can get and finish it. We finished the 7-year-old rye. And I know Scott, but the rest of the listeners may or may not know. We released that. We released it a couple other times. Both the finishes have exceeded the initial reviews from a third party Whiskey Advocate. And a lot of other people, when they taste the Split Save Rye, when they taste Ruby Rye Springs, they're like, both of these whiskeys, the rye whiskeys, are better finished the way that Bill and you finished them, in the way that we pulled the trigger on those, compared to just the straight Indiana 95.5 that we released. We released it as a 7-year-old. We released it again as an 8-year-old. But the bottom line is, we want to finish it. Now we finish it again as an 8-year-old. We'll probably release it again in the future. You want to talk about the future batches? Bill and I we have the intention of releasing it as a 9-year-old, and maybe even holding back if we're running out of barrels. We may even hold back 5 barrels or something to release it as a 10-year-old another year and a half from now. I mean, but our game plan is to finish it and see where it goes. Ruby Rye Springs, 7-year-old rye.
Yeah.
Bill and I did with that, and we brought those casks in that I found over in Richmond, Virginia, and we don't have an NDA on that, so it's Virago Spirits. We brought those casks in and some others. We got some other ones coming in this fall from that same rum distillery. I mean, Bill and I are hands down. I mean, he said it 100 times. Maybe a lot of these listeners may or may not have heard him. Bill thinks it's one of the best finished whiskeys that we've done, and it's our 7-year high in the Ruby Port rum cask.
Yeah, it was a delicious, really, and that's the thing. Like you talked about not overdoing these finishings, and it can quickly get to that point. Like we've all probably had something that's way overdone. And as much as you monitor all of those finishing, it really allows you to stay on top of things and decide, hey, we still want the quality whiskey to be able to show up in this. We don't want it just buried behind whatever the finishing, portion is. And that really kind of shines in a lot of what you guys do. So
I think you'll see a big difference in the way we view finished whiskey, American whiskey, than a lot of other people. And I don't mean this as a slight at anyone else, but typically if you barrel finish a whiskey, you don't put your best whiskey. If you distill and you release whiskey every day, your best whiskey you hold back, you release it at barrel proof on its own. That's just kind of the way it works. Anything that's particularly aged, that's the way people do it, because that's kind of what the largest crowd of whiskey enthusiasts wants, right? They want that barrel aged, anywhere from 10 to 12 years, maybe a little bit older. That's kind of the unicorn type stuff you're looking for. We're kind of the opposite of that. So instead of taking the young stuff and barrel finish it, which kind of covers up its flaws or covers up its youth, we want the best whiskey we can get, and then we barrel finish it simply for the reason of that's what we do. That's why we're a little bit different than most of the other producers out there. We're not looking to cover up any flaws. We still want to taste that beautiful whiskey that's underlying the finish. I just want to kind of round it out a little bit. Sometimes that first batch, if I had to pick something I didn't love, it was the finish kind of fell off quickly on it. It was a somewhat short finish for an 11.5-year-old, really tasty, baking spice bourbon. When we put it in those sherry rum barrels, it just went on forever. That kind of molasses finish or maple syrup finish from that dark rum just went on forever. And it just, we're not trying to cover up flaws. We're just trying to accentuate here and there and just add a little dimension to the flavors of the underlying whiskey. If you can't taste that underlying whiskey, we've overfinished it. And that's how we feel.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's a very, very good way to put it. You still have to have that marriage of those combinations being able to shine in their own right. Bobby,
I'm not saying other people don't do that, but if we get a fantastic whiskey that blows our mind, our first thought is, oh my gosh, this is going to be so wonderful if we can finish this in a something cask.
Yeah.
Very few other companies are going to do that. Most people are going to get a fantastic, amazing whiskey if they source or still whatever it is. They're thinking, we're releasing this as a single barrel. And we'll do some single barrels too. When it's too darn good to finish, we will. But it's kind of a nuance, but it's a slight difference in just the way we approach the whiskey in general.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say, Scott, is you have the private select cask up there that we did for Mash and Journey, the rye. And so just like that one, Bill and I picked 3 different batches of barrels to do for the first release. We sent them out, let everybody pick different single barrels that they wanted to use, and they got to taste the front end of the whiskey. The back end was obviously, we finished them all in toasted barrels from Kelvin Cooperage that Paul McLaughlin and William Hornaday made for us. And then we rebarreled all of them. And you've got one there that you and Mash and
Drum. Yeah, Jason.
And put together. And then we rebarreled all those 23 different barrel types that we had, whiskey types. We had the 6, we had the 7, and then we had the 8-year-old rye. And then we rebarreled them in the stainless steel drums to stop it. But Bill and I cut that off. We tasted it 11 days, at 23 days, at 23 days. Bill and I and a couple other people, we tasted like 24, 25 days. We told them to dump it, and they said, we're going into the Easter weekend. It's a 4-day weekend at our bottler. So we knew we were going to dump it between Tuesday and Friday the following week after Easter. That was going to be 29 to 32 days.
Mhm.
All of them got dumped between 30 and 31 days. And we know, Bill said it from the very beginning. He's like, we're not overcooking any of our juice. And so we know other people are finishing stuff, whether it's sherry cask, Chardonnay, Pinot, whatever. They're doing a year and a half, 2 years, 4 years. Other people do toast or a double oak. They might do it for a year or 2 years. Our finishes on the split stave barrels, they've always been somewhere between about 4 to 6 weeks. All of our private select casks, those 20 barrels that we did this past spring, all of them were 30 and 31 days. And Bill's pulling the trigger on that stuff. We're not overcooking it. We want to dump it early, and we'd rather be on the short side than the long side. We don't want to overcook the juice.
Yeah.
We're very confident in the blends that we put together. We know we're buying great barrels, and we're very confident in the blends that we put together before we put them in the secondary barrel. So we kind of feel like if we're going to air, I'd rather pull it a week early than a week late.
Well,
because I know that the whiskey is going to be good, whether it has tons of finish or just enough finish. You know what I mean? But if it's too much, I don't want to ruin it.
And Scott, we're not talking about pulling it at 6 months or 9 months or a year. We're talking about doing it. Do we want to pull it now and send in the work order to have it dumped, or do we want to wait one more tasting?
Yeah.
We're not waiting another 6 months or a year. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there, and you guys know all the brands. I mean, I like the brands, just some of them are too strong for me. And the other thing is, some of them, they don't keep them at barrel proof when they finish them. So they're a little bit overcooked, and then they're watered down, and that goes 100% against what Forgate's about.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the good part about what you guys do is you leave it as the way it is. You don't overcook anything. You know, you monitor the heck out of all these things. And like Bill said, you know, once you go too far, you know, there is really no going back, you know, so making sure that it's not overcooked, you know, especially with these finishings and, you know, and you guys have the whole process of not just one kind of finish, you know, you've got to try to now work out the balance of there being a couple things, whether it's, you know, whatever, rum and, you know, port and, you know, cognac, whatever it may be. So you really have to be careful with what it is you're doing to not, you know, overpower the whiskey and to cover up that really good whiskey that you've already got. So,
yeah.
And so, this will be a good segue, Scott, to go into Old Cherry Pike. For example, when I went down there in the winter, it was probably 35 degrees. The sherry cask showed up like 3 or 4 days ago. They just came off the boat and then the train. We got 8 casks there, and they're like, you know, it sounds like they left some of the fortified wine in there. And I'm like, okay, I borrowed a big crawfish boil stainless steel tank from my neighbor that probably holds, I don't know, 20, 25 gallons. I mean, it's a pretty big one that you would do a crawfish boil in or a shrimp boil.
Yeah.
And so I brought it down there so we could dump them because we don't want to leave any of that residual juice in there. I mean, we want the whiskey to be, to pick up the flavor from the wood and the oak and the cask, but we don't want to have like, you know, 2 or 3 gallons of some cheap fortified wine or even good rum or sherry or something else. We don't want it left in there. So Bill and I always check and make sure that the casks that we're looking at are either empty or almost empty. If there's a tiny bit of juice in them, that's fine. That's the way they came. But these ones on this Old Cherry Pike that we're getting into tonight, to like kind of like a segue to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down there with them and we're dumping them, and like, you know, now we're starting to fill empty 750s, out of the tank that we've dumped them, and we've only dumped 3 barrels. And we've probably got 15 gallons of sherry. And then we start dumping some more. I'm like, shit, man, I got to go to Home Depot and buy like 3 or 4 pickle buckets to dump all this fortified sherry cheap wine in.
Yeah.
That came over because they floated them over, Scott, right? They came over from the southern region of Spain, and Kelvin got them. Usually those barrels, all those barrels would go to Scotland, where they're all prepaid in advance. And these guys they didn't get a whole container, ocean container. They got a partial one. They sold Bill and I 8 of them. We probably dumped 25 to 27 gallons of sherry out of those barrels. If we would have filled them blind, we would have ruined our whiskey. There's no way we could have blended it with that type of fortified wine at the grade of the fortified wine. That's more of a seasoning sherry than a real drinking sherry. That's like a $8 sherry coming out of Spain or in the United States. It's not really. It's more to season the cask, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to talk a little bit about that, because I know that you specifically, Bob, are pretty passionate about securing some of these really interesting, like secondary barrels that you do a lot of the finishing and stuff in. So, in terms of the barrels and the importance to them and your whiskey, let's talk a little bit about like that barrel process, just in terms of you finding those quality barrels. Like, what's your process, and kind of what are your thought process on that?
Well, on those, Paul McLaughlin told me in his office how they do it, what the process is, and that they brought them over. I told Bill, I said, they're going to be super fresh. We just got to dump all the juice out of them that comes over with them from overseas. And then, I probably talked to 5 to 7 different rum distilleries. The only ones that I specifically sourced was from Richmond, Virginia, and then the early cask that Bill was talking about earlier on batch 1 that came from the Florida Keys. I'm down there. I've talked to those guys. I know where they are. I've been in their rum distillery. I know where they are in the Florida Keys. I told them that we want more of their barrel. When they dump some more, even though the relationship was with Kevin and Paul McLaughlin, and maybe even Brittany, who's their sales director, they had called me and said, "Hey, we just dumped 57 barrels. Would you like some of them?" And I told, and this guy's name is Sean, that works for the rum distillery. And I told Sean, I said, "Yeah, we'll take them. We want 20 of the dark." And he goes, "I don't know if I can do them between the dark and the blonde." I said, "We don't want any of the Southern blonde. We want 20 of the dark. Can you give me 20 of the dark?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'll get them." So I told Kevin, I said, "Hey, Kevin, we got 20 of the dark coming in." He goes, "Okay, I'll buy them for you like what they've done before." Because they were helping Bill and I out in 4-Gate whiskey. So they bought them. We paid the freight in. And he said, "Hey, man, are the other ones available?" I said, "Yeah, Kevin, they're available." He goes, "Okay, tell Brittany to buy the rest of them." So they bought the other 37 too for Calvin, for their other customers. But Bill and I got the first 20 of the dark ones. The ones that came in from Virginia, I found this guy online. I knew what he was doing. And I told Bill, I said, we really got to get these barrels in from these guys. I offered to prepay them. I met Barry Handberg and talked to him a bunch, emailed him, and secured those casks for us. And I've got some other ones secured this fall for us. And he called us and said, "Hey, man, we're dumping these PX sherry rum casks first before the Ruby Porter going to be done. And I wanted to know if you and 4-Gate wanted the PX sherry." I said, "We'll take them." I said, when are you dumping them? He goes, when, next week? I said, okay, we're going to bring them into Kelvin. We brought them into Kelvin. William and his team and Clayton, they looked at those casks for us. The rest of the guys there. And Bill and I said, well, what do you think on these? I said, Bill, I think this is where Bill and I said, why don't we do a blend of the 9 and the 12-year-old and fill these PX sherry casks? We're still going to get the Ruby Port. And Bill had already said, you get the Ruby Port. We knew what it was going to go up against, something like Midnight Winter's Dram, but we wanted to fill it with our 7-year-old, and we couldn't wait to get those casks in. But they did a second round of rum in the Ruby Port cask. So we got the PX sherry first. I mean, and you know what the reviews have been.
Yeah.
We've got the next ones already lined up. I left Barry an email and a voicemail last week on the next set of barrels that we have coming from them. It's Bill and I are fortunate.
Well, you guys do. You definitely secured some awesome barrels. All right, so here at Katie, thank you so much. This is a question for you, Bobby. I'm afraid to ask you this question or whatever. But anyway, Katie, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It just says, cheers, great friends, family, and whiskey. No going to pass on the 4-gate if I can help it. Bobby, is that a BS or BR screw cancer bottle I see in the wood box on your shelf?
Yes, it is. I bought 3 of them from my friends in at the Baton Rouge Bourbon Society. I sold one of them to Cost, to Justin's House of Bourbon, and I kept 2 of them for myself. I'll probably open one and keep the other one. The other one's in my billiard room. But those guys, that went to the Lymphoma and Leukemia Society. The bottle's called Twice Blessed. It's 5-year-old rum that they finished in. 5-year-old rye that they finished in rum cask. And I had lymphoma twice, so I told those guys I wanted to buy those bottles. So.
Well, when Ethan and Katie Turk were here, they left. There's a pick that they did, or a pick that they got from. I think it's Old Soul. I think is what it was. But that was the group that did that pick. So she had mentioned that right here. So they and that was a really nice one. So those guys are doing a good job with their barrel picks. So
they raised a ton of money.
Yeah. All right. So that's a little transition. So we kind of touched a little bit on batch 14. And again, I guess we can kind of go back a little bit, but this just released roughly about a week or so ago, correct?
Yeah, depending on where you are.
Yeah. I know it's kind of slowly popping up. I haven't seen a lot of it yet. I don't know if people are kind of holding on to it or whatever, but just in terms of the sample that I had in my bottle is it must be on back order or something. It's taken its it must be on one of those shipping containers is where I think it is right now. But I promise you this, if you're a fan of sherry finished bourbon and you're a fan of really good bourbon, well, I think you'll really like this. And my recommendation to you is don't be overly judgmental right away with the whiskey. Let the thing open up. And that's been my experience with most or all of the 4-gate stuff, especially with the finishings that they have, is that when you let these things open up, they will start to shine for you. So, and I think batch 14, the old Sherry Pike, it follows suit. It's right in that category. And it's another delicious whiskey. So congrats on another good release.
Thank you.
All
I'd
right.
say, so this is a blend of 6 to 12-year-old Kentucky straight bourbons. Trying to remember the 6-year mash bill, 78, 10, 12. And then the 74, 18, 8 was a 12-year. It was 100 and I got it right here, 118.9 proof. We only did, we did less than 1,800 bottles. It was 750 something. And this was the first one that we did that we barrel finished in just a single barrel that wasn't dual use, unless you count toasted or split stave, which are a little bit different. But this was the first real finished one that was a single use, and that was just because the Oloroso sherry casks were fresh. We really wanted to give it a shot, and I really like this. Like you said, this of all the things we produced, this one needs a little time to breathe.
Yeah.
So I always like to pour it in my glass, let it sit for 10, 15 minutes to go, figure out what I'm going to watch on TV first, come back to it, and then take a sip. And it's just wonderful. It just kind of lets some of that, the dryness of the sherry, kind of that it lets it dissipate just a little bit out of the glass. And then it just kind of opens up a lot of great flavors, a lot of great aromas.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So let me touch on this. So
Scott, I wanted to tell you too.
Yeah.
To follow up what Bill was saying. Also on the label, we say on this, the TTB was screwing with everybody for about 3 months, and they changed the rules again. But when we got this label approved, as well as the Ruby Rise Springs, they said you really need to put the matured statement on there. So on this bottle, it says it's matured 88 days in the Spanish Oloroso cask. So, and this is also one of the other things that Bill really wanted to do when we formed the company was he wanted to have some whiskey tanked that was finished that we could either release it as is or blend it with something else, as you know that we've done several times. This is the base juice that was about half of batch 9, which was Andalusia Key, when we finished it with the dark rum. So it's the same juice with the dark rum finish. Bill and I released it first. That way, we saved the rest of the juice to release it here as Old Cherry Pike. And that was one of Bill's main objectives starting Foregate, was he wanted to have finished whiskey in a tank that we didn't know what we wanted to do with it, but we had it finished. And now what do we want to do with it when more options come open to us?
I'd just like to have kind of a library of some whiskey that we can play around with. And when we have, 4 or 5 different kinds, do a little blending and see what we can come up with. And if it works, then we'll do a big batch of it. If it doesn't, then we'll just wait or release it as is. Again, if it stinks, we're probably just not going to use it. But we've been very fortunate that nothing we've put in a second barrel yet has come out bad. So at least from my opinion. So
it's a nice option to have, when you can have good whiskey tanked and, maybe you get some good barrels and you think it's going to work really well. I mean, hey, I think what you guys have done already, to date has been fantastic. Some are, you hate to say like better than others. That's subjective, but I mean, obviously there's ones that we all probably prefer over other ones, and that's fine. But I'm really biased towards this rye, this toasted barrel rye that we got fortunate enough to get. I don't
understand why you would be.
I'll tell you what,
what's up with that?
It's literally, and I've had people send me this without any solicitation, of course, that it's some of the top whiskey that they've ever had, period. Not this year, not last year. And I think a lot of people who have had this will kind of echo the same thing. I mean, that rye toasted, and a lot of other people had some of them, and they were absolutely fantastic. So I think what you guys did with that finish on that rye has really kind of hit a kind of a soft spot for me. I mean, it's a home run right there. So, but rather than me kind of go over that, what were the thoughts behind you guys deciding to eventually do kind of a barrel pick or kind of an exclusive?
We've been having people asking about it pretty much from the start of the company, and it kind of got louder and louder. Bobby was really the one who kind of pushed us to do it right then. We happened to have some whiskey that worked well for it. I was kind of hesitant on doing it because just picking a bottle of whiskey and selling it is not really our MO. It's not really what we do, right? But I was kind of at a loss because we don't sit around with 75 barrels. When we're done with them, we sell them back to Kelvin or give them back to Kelvin Cooperage. So I wasn't really sure what we were going to do that kind of fit with Foregate. And then Bobby was talking to a couple of the folks who are interested, and he came up with the idea of let's have Kelvin do some toasted barrels. And I said, well, that's perfect. That fits in line perfectly with what we do. It was a great idea. It sounds simple on its face, but when you're on this side of the aisle, on this side of the screen, trying to think of what you're going to do that fits with your company profile, that's repeatable too, because it's going to be an absolute headache if everybody wants to pick a different kind of finished barrel. It's kind of impossible to do. It just wound up being perfect.
Yeah, and so at the beginning of it was Blake was beating the shit out of me, to be quite honest. It was like, hey man, when are you gonna do this? When are you gonna do a single barrel? I want to buy some single barrels. When are you gonna do it? And so Bill and I gave him first dibs because he was pushing it. And then Sloan, Justin's House of Bourbon, you know, we were telling where we thought the price point was going to be, how are you going to design it, what were you going to do, how are you going to do the neck tags and this and that. And he goes, I think you need to do something else with it. I said, well, we're not going to do like 5 different finishes. He goes, then why don't you just toast them all? And so I told Sloan, I said, okay, let me go back to Bill and let me just say, maybe we'll just toast them all, and then I'll just go. I'll buy 20 single barrel stainless steel drums to stop the finishing process. And so Sloan was kind of beating us up a little bit. He liked it a lot. They only bought 1 barrel. He's kind of kicking himself in the ass.
I'm sure he is.
And said, you know, we probably should have bought at least 3 that you allocated to us, but they only bought 1. But that 6-year-old that they bought, I mean, arguably, I mean, you guys got an 8-year rye. They picked a 6-year-old bourbon that was finished. That 6-year-old bourbon's fantastic. I mean, the 7's great too. But anyways, those are the guys that really pushed Bill and I to do it that way. I met a guy at the through one of my partners, Dave Kamer, in the LLC that invested in Foregate. And he introduced me to a bunch of people that are tasting out in Anchorage. And this guy did neck tags. And I told Bill, I said, I want to explore these guys' neck tags and see what he can do. And then he gave me a couple of different mock-ups. And then we were kind of looking at it and we're like, you know what? I say we just pull the trigger on it. It's going to cost us a fortune. It's going to set us apart from everybody else. And Bill was on board with it. And so that's kind of how the single barrel came about. And I told Bill one Monday, I told him, I said, look, man, we got all these barrels coming down from Kelvin. If they don't sell, we're going to release them from Foregate Whiskey. Let's just say we'll release them from the CBOs of Foregate. And so that's what we did. And we had 7 barrels from Kelvin, from Bill and I, from Foregate that were not previously pre-sold. We allocated those cases out to our distributors and online guys. And they were all gone in 5 phone calls. And,
well, it seemed like it worked out pretty well for you, I'd say, hey?
Well, I mean, you were the first guys to release it. Then the guys in Lexington did it. Blake, he sold out. Justin's House of Bourbon in Bourbon Outfitter, I think those guys sold out in 4 or 5 days. You guys sold out in 5 days. No, it really turned out well. Bill and I
hey, can we get on the record that anybody who participated in the first round is somehow grandfathered in? Which one of you wants to admit to that right now?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I think my internet just went out for a second.
Okay, yeah. Look at this silence.
I think is coming through Louisville right now. What was that?
I mean, and I've told you guys both. I'm like, hey, we appreciated having the opportunity to even do it. I mean, it was already a big name, great whiskey, all of that, but to be able to put, you know, our like kind of name on the bottle, I mean, it meant a lot to us. So we were very appreciative of that. So, and I think our whiskey ultimately turned out pretty damn well. So, all right, so let's talk about that.
Top of the list, Scott, for sure.
Good. There we go. Yeah, top of the list. That wasn't like a ringing endorsement for like a guarantee. That was just like a top of the list. But
it's a list and you're on it. It could be a band list. It could be
that's true. It
could be next in line list. You never know.
It could be that list that
you're behind Jason, though. I just hope you know that.
Yeah.
Jason already tried to scrub you out.
I knew it. You can't trust those damn Italians. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. You just can't trust them. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this. So we're already kind of in the past, and we've gone through the present, and we're into part of the future. So I guess with future releases coming up, let's talk about some of that and kind of maybe where you see kind of Foregate going in the future.
Well, we've got batches lined up through this year and most of next year. I don't know. I guess one of the next big ones that we're very excited about, we've talked about it before, is our trilogy batch, Bluegrass Trilogy. And that's a blend of 3 different Kentucky straight bourbons presented 3 different ways. So one batch, 3 different bottlings of it. So there's a 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 of the batch. So the first one is they're all finished in dark rum barrels from the Caribbean. This is another example where we had a library of whiskey, and we kind of played around with it. So we took some of those barrels and finished them then in some Apera sherry barrels from Australia, and then the other half of them in some tawny port barrels from Australia. So one of the bottlings from this batch is going to be the Apera sherry and dark rum finish. One will be the tawny port and dark rum finish, and then the third will be a blend of the 2. So it will be Apera sherry, tawny port, and dark rum for the third, and they are available as a set of 3. We had pre-orders on wooden boxes where you can buy them in a set of a beautiful wooden box, handmade by a gentleman out on the West Coast. Wooden box. Bobby probably has examples of them there in his house. It's engraved and everything etched on the side of it. So you can buy them as a set. You can buy them individually. If you do find one of the sets for sale, the bottle numbers will match. So if you have bottle number 125, you'll have 125 for all 3 bottles. So it's pretty cool. We're very excited about that one, and that'll be coming out later this year.
Yeah, I mean, that was some of the same juice that we were talking about earlier, Scott. They wanted to have that inventory of whiskey, and we had it, and we used some of it we used some of the barrels. The first barrels we used on the Kelvin collaboration too, with the cognac cask, same dark rum barrels. The other 16 barrels that we brought in, we used it for this. Bill said, hey, let's pull a portion of this finished rum juice, and we did Andalusia Key, which was the other portion of this Old Sherry Pike. We're not trying to confuse your listeners. We're just trying to give you the details that Bill and I did. Then we had the rest of this dark rum finished Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey that was a blend of 3 different whiskeys, our 6, 9, and 12-year-old. And I'd originally named it the Bluegrass Trilogy. And Bill's like, I don't know if I want to release it. Why don't we hold on to it for a little bit? We don't need it right now. We've got enough batches. Our releases are set, and so we sat on it. And then the trailer, the ocean container came in from Australia into Kelvin, and William told us about it. I said, Bill, we don't have any whiskey. I said, man, let's use the dark rum finish blend of the trilogy, and let's buy 1 barrel of the tawny and 1 barrel of Apera sherry, and let's taste it after like 2 weeks or 4 weeks and see how it is. And we'll see. They've got other barrels. And I told William, just kind of reserve some extra barrels for us. Don't sell them all. And we tasted it, and Bill's like, okay, this is really good. Let's get the other barrels. So then we filled 1 of the tawny, 1 of the Apera sherry with the rum finished whiskey. The rum finished whiskey was probably, I think it was about 8 months in the dark rum cask from the Florida Keys. And then Bill and I agreed on buying 4 more barrels of each. And so now we've got 5 barrels filled with our dark rum and the tawny and the Apera sherry. And then we're tasting it, and we're kind of blending it back 50-50, 60-40, 75-25 each way. And I'm like, I think it tastes kind of good. Bill, what do you think? And then William and Clayton were tasting it with us. We're in the conference room, and they're like, you know what? And Bill's like, maybe we just keep it with the Bluegrass Trilogy. Now we've just added the second and the third cask to finish it, and we just keep it the Bluegrass Trilogy, and we'll just say it's those two in the blend. And so I really think it was more Bill and William and Clayton than myself saying, why don't we do it and call that the third batch? And I kind of mix it around at my house first because I get those samples first. But I was telling these guys how good it is. And we were down in Kelvin, and Bill's like, why don't we just change the trilogy and call it now? We'll just do 3 different releases instead of 1. And then I redid all the labels, redid everything. And we said, and at the same time then, I'd been designing this 2-bottle box set for Paul McLaughlin for the Eagle Thief to give him for when his brother passed away, so you could see the front and the back of the bottle. And then I told Bill, I said, I'm going to work with this guy on the West Coast and design a 3-bottle set. What do you think? And he goes, okay, let's do it. And so I'm working with this guy designing. We got the 3-box set in. Then we changed it a couple more times, Scott. We added 3 labels at the first time. Then we had 2 more burn marks at the bottom on both sides with the 4-gate fence. And then Bill and I said, okay, let's go with it. And we showed the guys at Republic what we were going to do. And those guys were all in. And so going into the future, that's the juice that Bill wanted. Again, that he said, let's have this stuff tanked, and I'm going to figure out what to do with it. Those Australian casks came in, and we decided to try that, and it really turned out great. I mean,
all right. So here's a
you're gonna love it. You're really gonna, and the neatest thing about that batch is that you can taste it 100 different times. Go through all 3 versions of it. Every time you taste it, you'll pick a different favorite. It'll be one day it'll be the port, one day it'll be the sherry, the next day it'll be the blend. Every time I taste it, it depends on my mood. It depends on what I've had to eat. I love them all, and they're all every time I go to it, I can't. And I laugh. Bobby and I laugh every time at his house and we're tasting it. I would say, well, tonight it was the port. He was like, "Oh, you sure?" Because 48 hours ago it was the sherry. I'm like, "Yeah. What can we say?" You know,
it sounds like a bourbon journey.
It might be a journey.
All right, so here's a question. So somebody Cam was asking about pre-orders. Is there still the ability to do a pre-order for the trilogy?
You'll have to check with your local stores and see if they pre-ordered. So we sell to distributors. We don't sell directly to stores or anything like that. So you'll have to check with your local liquor store and see if they chose to pre-order one and if you can reserve that. And, you know, I don't know what's happening with Sealbox and Bourbon Outfitter and how they're going to handle anything like that. But they might have a few as well. You know, it just depends.
I mean, we got kind of blindsided by it, Scott, to be quite honest. Bill and I thought we were going to sell 25 to 40 of these. And I'm talking
across 4 states.
What's that?
Across 4 states.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we knew that the 3 bottles themselves are going to be $600, right? $200 a piece. And then I'm designing this case, and I know the case our landed cost is very, very expensive. We're not making any money off of it. And then we shared all the details with Republic Louisville, and they said, okay, with the box, this and that, you should do it for $749. And then they said, oh, by the way, we want you to design a cardboard box that the wooden box can fit in, because we're not delivering them to our customers like this. So I just finished designing the cardboard box that the wooden box is going into, so we can deliver it. Bill and I are doing some other special stuff with that as well. But the bottom line is, we wanted to cut the sales off at the end of March for the pre-sale, and they asked for another week. So, you know, they went off at we were 27, then it was 49, then it went to 120, then it was 170.
Yeah,
and then
awesome.
Over the weekend, it was it hit to I don't know, 205. And then we added in the ones from 4-gate, and we're at 220. I said, okay, it's off. We're shut off. we told everybody we had to shut it off. And
Well, that's pretty awesome considering you started out with like not even thinking you were going to sell 25 or 30 across 4 states. So
that's kind of what we thought. A couple of questions. Will Henderson, we will be at Sigmund's Bottle Shop on September 9th for their release. So that's in Atlanta. That's a liquor store in Atlanta doing a toasted finished single barrel rye release on September 9th. I think that one might be pre-sold though by Sigmund, Bobby. I don't know if that's
Sigmund bought a bunch of them. They're all pre-sold there too.
Yeah, but we will be there. If anyone's going to be there, we're happy to sign your bottle or just meet you, shake your hand. You may not. It may actually make it worth less if we sign it. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got a few bottles here that were like in the $200 range, and then Straub and D'Antoni signed them, and like people are like, "I'll give you $100 for that." I'm like, "All right."
Well, he started paying me to not sign his bottles, which is the best racket I've ever done.
Yeah. Hey, do you want that bottle signed? No, that's a hard pass. Don't sign that bottle. Don't sign it.
It's hard pass. In fact, I'll pay you $300 for that bottle if you don't sign it.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask. All right. So let me ask you guys this. So between the batch 14, the Old Sherry Pike that's releasing now, and till the end of the year, we know we talked about the trilogy. What do we have? Anything in between there that you can share with us?
Yeah, we got it. We got a couple more coming out. We've got our rye whiskey again. Kelvin had some of those a pair of sherry barrels, and Bill said, "Why don't we try some of our 95.5 rye whiskey in them?" So we got a batch of that coming out probably at the end of October, and then we did
Rye Down Under, I believe it's called.
Called Rye Down Under. Yep.
The under is upside down, in case you're wondering. That's Bobby's creativity shining through there.
Yeah, and then we did, and then we got the split stave coming out again this year for Christmas. This will be our third round of this. And this year we did a blend of 17 barrels, and I just sourced some French oak barrels for a friend of ours, of Bill and I's, through Kelvin. They didn't make them, but they got them for him, because this guy would never been able to get 3 French oak casks without Kelvin Cooperage and me helping him out. Quite honestly, they wouldn't do it. But anyways, William got them for him, and then when those came in, I said, "Hey man, is there any way you could get us a couple of pallets of the French oak?" And I'm thinking that we might want to do some French oak split steak for this Christmas. And he goes, "Hey man, Kevin bought like 6 or 7 pallets of French oak like 8 years ago. It's been sitting in the cooperage, and we've never used it at all." And he goes, and I said, "Can you make us some barrels?" And he goes, "Yeah, we'll make them for you. What do you want?" I said, "I don't know. Depending on the size, probably 7 to 12 barrels." And he goes, "Let me see what the staves look like, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do." I said, "Well, we want to do them split stave, French oak. We're going to do a blend of bourbon and rye. Bill and I are trademarking the name. It's called Burr Rye, BRRYE. We've trademarked the name with our attorney, not to go against High West Boo Rye, which is BOURYE. Their blend of bourbon and rye, but it's not a secondary finish. Ours is." And so we got this coming out for Christmas. Really exciting. Bill and I probably tasted it with 45 or 50 different people. Scott, you've tasted it.
I have.
I think you've tasted it once or twice. I know. I think I tasted it with you and your father when you were here in town at the beginning of July.
Yep.
It's exceptional. A lot of Bill and I's friends are telling us it might be one of the best whiskeys that Four Gates done. And
yeah, so it's a very very good whiskey, that's for sure. So
and then we've got I just mentioned, some of those other ones, the Kelvin 4 that I told you we're going into for next year. Bill said we've got these other ones. We've got we've got probably half, if not 3/4 of 2022 already lined out. All the labels are approved. We ran into a lot of great juice in the last 5 weeks, literally the last 5 weeks. We've bought 6 different lots of whiskey. So Foregate's in a really, really good spot. One of our partners has really helped us out. We've gotten some other juice that we got first dibs on. We got 2 other partners that have helped fund the purchase of the whiskey internally. We're grateful to both those guys. One's NV Whiskey, another guy's in Southern Michigan. Really grateful for those guys, and we're building our Foregate whiskey. We're in a really good spot going forward.
Awesome. Well, it's good to know. All right, so before we sign off, there is a link in the description of the video as to where you guys, if you want to try to buy whatever Foregate may be available. There's 3 links in the description below. So if they ship to your state, great. I don't know what state obviously you live in, but if you want to give it a shot, there's 3 online retailers that you guys go through. Again, it's linked below. So if anybody wants to pick anything up, have at it there. So, all right. So before we go, what's one like little semi juicy thing you can give us? Anything that's kind of.
I know what you're getting at, Scott. I know what you want me to comment about.
All right, just let the cat out of the bag slowly. Just tell everybody a little bit about that. I think that's pretty exciting for you guys.
Well, my camera is overheating, so if I stop here, it's because my camera dies. I promise. That's why I've gone off twice. So Bobby did find some barrels of Indiana bourbon that are 14 years old. There's only a couple of them, maybe 4, and they're very low fill, so it's probably going to be less than 150 bottles. We are going to release those as single barrels, straight Indiana whiskey, Dearborn County straight bourbon whiskey, Dearborn County being where that distillery is located. That's probably going to be a single event release. You're not going to be able to buy it across our footprint. So it'll probably be one of the stores here in Louisville or something along those lines. But at the same time, we're going to release a 10-year-old small batch version of the exact same whiskey. And that will be a larger release across multiple different stores and things like that as well. So if you can't get one of the 150 or so bottles, then that's just a guess. It might be less, might be 1 or 2 more. That'll be sometime next year, most likely early next year, if I had to guess.
And I mean, even if you can't get a hold of that 14-year, I mean, the 10 year is nothing to shake a stick at. I mean, that's already stuff that, a lot of people have no opportunity to even get. So, I mean, that'll be an absolutely incredible release in itself. So
I should also mention that we did just launch in Louisiana as well. So if anyone out there, I hope you're safe for one. I hope you have power. I hope your property's okay and everyone is safe.
Yeah.
But we did just launch in Louisiana. I'm sure it's probably not hitting stores because it would have been in the past week. But we're hoping to go to a couple other big states in the next year as well. We're already in talks with the distributor on that one. They're the ones who are kind of asking us to go to these states. So we're following their lead. They're asking us, they're telling us where they want us to go. So we go.
Awesome. Well, that's good. So, well, all right. So
Scott, the last tease I'll give them is, Bill and I found, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago when we first found out about it. We bought it a week ago. Is some very high proof 95.5 rye, very unique, all in Kelvin Cooperage cask. We bought every barrel that they had. It's Thomas Handy high proof type, maybe even higher, maybe 130 plus. We got to see how it finishes out in the cask. Those barrels are 6.5 years old. Bill and I are really excited about that. And then we got a lead just literally last night on some other juice that we're really excited about. So we've got our forks in a lot of different fires, and we're happy to share it with you and all the listeners.
Well, that was really what I wanted to kind of get accomplished, was for people to understand where things kind of started, and where it's at now, and obviously where it's going. I mean, to see the growth of Foregate has been like absolutely incredible. So I mean, it's a lot of credit for you guys and getting out there and pounding the pavement and doing what you do. So congrats on all of that. So all right, before we wrap it up, Sugar Kitty, can you give me maybe we'll go, let's see, what are we at, 1:15, maybe a couple more minutes. If there's anybody who wants to enter into getting the 200 ml of the Old Sherry Pike, which is releasing in some places, it's not everywhere. You get the Foregate glass and the Foregate coin. So if anybody wants in, you got a couple minutes, and then we'll ask one of the guys in the chat to give us a number, and then Sugar Kitty, you can match the number up with whoever you got in the list, and we'll get a winner for tonight, and I'll get this thing shipped out to you guys ASAP. So all right, let's see what else we got. Any questions? Yeah, hey, I mean, that's a pretty big bar when you start comparing something to some BTAC and stuff. But if there's anybody
proof wise,
okay, all right.
No, that was just going to the proof.
Yeah,
I wasn't going against Thomas Handy up front.
Thomas Handy's great stuff. I got nothing but respect for what Buffalo Trace and all those big guys do. If I could, I would.
No, I love their juice. It's great.
Yeah, and like I said before, so there's links in the description below. So if anybody is looking for, I think it's it's Sealbox, Caskers, and Bourbon Outfitter, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
that's right,
yeah.
Scott. Yep.
And nowadays, I mean, most of these guys, if not one of them, somebody usually will ship to, one of your, one of the states. I mean, it's a pretty good bet that you're going to be able to get it from somebody. So keep checking. And I know they do different releases at different times. So just because something gets released on a particular date doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be at that online retailer. So just keep checking. So, all right, Kitty, what do we got here? Did I miss anything? All right, why don't we stop it? All right, Mike's in. We'll say Mike is the last one in. So, Kitty, why don't you give me the total that we're at, and then I'll ask one of the guys in the chat to give us a number between whatever it was that factored in tonight. So, see who the lucky winner is, and I'll fill it up. I've used this for my sample and my review and stuff. So I promise when you get it, it'll actually be approximately 200 mLs, give or take. And it was so, and it is open, so you guys can see. So I made sure it's open. It'll be sent by me. This isn't any this isn't sponsored by Foregate. This is my own doing. We don't need anybody in trouble with the TTB or anything like that. So.
We'll send you the glass and the coin, but I can't send you the whiskey, unfortunately.
I'll take care of the whiskey part of it. So, all right, 42 entries. So thanks everybody for entering tonight. So whichever one of you want to give me a number, give me your favorite number between 1 and 42, and that will be tonight's winner. So whatever one of you guys want to give me a number, fire away.
13.
13. That's my favorite number, actually.
That was our first bottle that fell off the rack on our very first batch and broke. So I get bottle 13 out of all of our batches.
Lucky 13. Lucky number 13. All
right.
I
grabbed that bottle out of all of our batches now. That's my lucky bottle out of each one.
Oh, man, I love 13. All right, Kitty, who we got as number 13? Who's the lucky winner tonight? So this will be and I'll get this stuff out this week to one of you, whoever wins this. So I hope it's not Ritter.
It's gonna be Ritter.
Even if it is, he's not getting it.
It's gonna be Ritter.
He's not getting it. I can tell you that right now. He's not getting it.
You and I both know it's gonna be him.
It could. It's either that or the Turks. The Turks, they win everything.
No, I signed up. I bet it's going to go.
No, it wasn't. All right, Deborah C. Deborah C is the winner. All right, so Deborah, send me an email at it's mybourbonjourney01@gmail.com. mybourbonjourney01@gmail.com, and just give me your mailing information, and I'll get that stuff shipped out to you. this week or weekend at the latest. So congrats, Deborah. That's awesome. So hopefully, maybe, I don't know if Deborah, have you ever had any 4-gate? I'm always interested to know who's been able to try some or whatever it may be, but I'm always excited to be able to.
Scott, and also through our emails, if she would like to connect with Bill,
and I'll get it. Well, I'll get whatever that is. I'll get her information to you guys. So that'd
be great. Yeah, thank you very much.
Adam, Scott does indeed bring rain when he shows up, and things that you own get destroyed because of him and his rain.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
you got that picture? Can you flash that up here?
Oh my God, that was so bad. I don't think I've got it saved on here. I should have brought it. I should have saved it. I figured that probably would have come up. That was bad on me. I should have saved it. It was my poor. Real quick before we go, my poor wife was like, at the time of COVID, she didn't want to go inside anywhere. So Straub pulls out the old Kentucky like pop-up tent. We're sitting out back, and like literally the skies just opened up. It was like, I mean, it was bad. Not as bad as what some people have been experiencing, but it was the next morning I get a picture, and it was just the poor tent was just completely demolished. I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. So it was a fun night.
He feels awful, and yet he has not bought me a new tent.
You'll get a new tent. I'll give you a new pop-up. It's gonna be a Wisconsin Badger pop-up tent, but that's what
then I promise you the next time you see it, it'll be in the same shape as my last one.
I can't. That's what they sell around here. If you want a Badger tent, then I'll get you one of those. So don't be so picky. So, all right, everybody. First and foremost, Bill, Bob, thanks for joining tonight. Dropping a little bit of information on everybody. Hopefully everyone tonight and maybe watching the replay get a little info out. Again, if you're interested in buying anything from 4-gate, there's links in the description below. See if they'll be able to help you out. So, Deborah, send me your information. We'll make sure to get that stuff out to you ASAP. So, all right, guys, everybody, thanks for joining tonight. Greatly appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you. We'll see you next Tuesday with something fun. I got something in the works. I think it'll be a fun one. So, cheers, guys, and we'll see you. We'll see you guys all next week.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks, Scott.
See ya.
Yeah. Hey.